Through Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel settled in the land of Egypt and remained there for more than 400 years. Before we proceed, follow us on your favorite platform for more Bible stories. And now to the story of Moses. As described in Exodus chapter 1, verses 15 to 22, the increasing number of Hebrews in Egypt prompted Pharaoh to order the killing of Hebrew baby boys. Although the Hebrews were already enslaved, their growing population instilled fear in the Pharaoh. During this time, Moses was born to Jochebed and Amram. Jochebed placed Moses in a waterproof basket, set it afloat on the Nile River to protect her son from the Pharaoh's decree, and instructed her daughter Miriam to follow along. One day, Pharaoh's daughter went to the Nile to bathe and noticed the basket among the reeds. She sent her maid to retrieve it and discovered the crying baby Moses inside. According to Exodus chapter 2, verses 7 to 9, Miriam approached Pharaoh's daughter's Hebrew maid and informed her that she knew a caregiver for the child. Miraculously, Pharaoh's daughter agreed and entrusted Moses to Jochebed, his biological mother, who cared for him until he was 3. As an adult and a member of the Egyptian royal house, the Bible does not explicitly detail Moses' life in the Egyptian court. However, it does describe the Israelites' enslavement and the oppressive rule of a powerful king. It mentions the land of Ramses in the book of Exodus, leading many scholars to conclude that Moses grew up during the time of Ramses II. As delineated in Exodus 2, verses 11 to 15, Moses witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster brutally beating a Hebrew slave, which enraged him. Later, he found the taskmaster and killed him. Fearing the consequences, Moses fled Egypt to Media. Exhausted and uncertain about his future, he sat by a well. At the well, 7 daughters of Jethro, a Midianite priest, came to draw water for their father's flock. When shepherds tried to drive away Jethro's daughters, Moses intervened and rescued them. Impressed by his kindness, the daughters told their father about the Egyptian who had helped them. Moses was later welcomed into Jethro's house and in time married Zipporah, one of Jethro's daughters. Zipporah gave birth to a son and named him Gershom, meaning, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." Moses spent 40 years in Media. During this time, the Pharaoh died and a new Pharaoh ascended. As explained in Exodus 3, verses 1 to 17, Moses tended sheep during his time in Media. One day, while tending the flock, he encountered a burning bush that had not been consumed by the flames. From the bush, God spoke to Moses, revealing his divine presence and instructing him to remove his sandals because he was standing on holy ground. God revealed his plan to Moses. He would send him to Pharaoh to demand the release of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Though Moses felt hesitant and inadequate for the task, raising several objections, God assured him that he would be with him and provide signs to confirm his message. When Moses asked God for his name to share with the Israelites, God responded, "I am who I am." God instructed Moses to meet his brother Aaron in the desert near Mount Horeb. Moses shared with Aaron the divine mission they were to carry out, confronting Pharaoh and demanding the release of the Israelites from slavery. Together they approached the elders of Israel to explain God's plan for their liberation. To convince the elders, Moses performed miracles, turning his staff into a serpent and back into a staff. He placed his hands inside his cloak to make it leprous and restore it to health. These signs demonstrated God's power and reassured the elders of their mission. Exodus chapter 5 details that along with his brother Aaron, Moses confronted Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, demanding the release of the Israelites. Moses again dropped his staff, which turned into a snake. Pharaoh's mages also dropped their staffs, which turned into larger snakes. However, Moses' snake began to devour the more giant snakes one after the other. Pharaoh rejected Moses' demands and refused to let the Israelites go. Exodus chapters 7 to 11 detail God's 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt to persuade Pharaoh to release the Israelites. First, the Nile River turned into blood, killing the fish and making the water undrinkable. Then frogs swarmed into homes and beds, followed by gnats or lice covering humans and animals. Swarms of flies afflicted the Egyptians, affecting people, livestock, and crops. Following Pharaoh's continual refusal, a severe disease struck the Egyptian livestock, killing cattle, sheep, and other animals. Painful sores broke out on both humans and animals. Next, hailstones destroyed crops, trees, and livestock, and swarms of locusts devoured all remaining vegetation. Pharaoh remained stubborn, so darkness enveloped Egypt for 3 days, sparing only the land of the Israelites. Finally, God struck down every firstborn in Egypt, sparing only those who followed specific instructions. The Israelites were instructed to mark their doors with lamb's blood, protecting their children from the force of destruction which passed over their homes, leading to the observance of Passover as a remembrance of the force of destruction which passed them over. Exodus 12, verses 17 to 22, explains that after the death of his firstborn son, the Pharaoh finally allowed the Israelites to leave Egypt. During their journey, the Lord guided the Israelites with a pillar of cloud by day, which went ahead of them to show the way, and then a pillar of fire at night to provide light. Pharaoh's heart hardened again as they left Egypt, and he pursued them with his army. As delineated in Exodus chapter 14, verses 1 to 31, the Israelites soon found themselves trapped against the Red Sea. God commanded Moses to stretch his staff toward the Red Sea to part the waters, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross safely. As the pursuing Egyptian army followed, the waters returned, drowning them. After leaving Egypt, Moses led the Israelites through the Shur Desert for 3 days, facing challenges like finding bitter water at Marah. They eventually arrived at Mount Sinai, where Moses ascended to receive the 10 Commandments from God. Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain. The Israelites grew impatient and persuaded Aaron to sanction the construction of a graven image. They built a golden calf to worship. When Moses returned and saw this idolatry, he became angry and shattered the tablets. However, God provided Moses with a second set of commandments after the people repented. Moses played a central role in overseeing the construction of the tabernacle, a sanctuary described in Exodus 25 to 40, where God's presence dwelled among the Israelites. The tabernacle featured the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy of Holies, serving as a sacred space for worship and communication with God. Throughout their journey in the wilderness, the Israelites repeatedly rebelled against God and tested Moses' leadership. In these moments of disobedience, Moses interceded on their behalf, pleading for God's mercy and forgiveness. However, some among the Israelites faced consequences from God, including plagues and even death, as a result of their disobedience and lack of faith. In addition to the 10 Commandments, additional laws were created to guide the Israelites in the wilderness. The Law of Moses, also known as the Mosaic Laws, consisted of 613 laws. As explained in Numbers chapter 13, Moses obeyed God's instruction to send 12 leaders, one from each tribe, to explore Canaan. Among them were well-known figures like Caleb and Joshua. The spies embarked on a 40-day journey to assess the land's strengths and weaknesses, examining its people, cities, soil, and vegetation. They returned with a massive cluster of grapes as evidence of Canaan's fertility and shared their findings upon their return. Caleb and Joshua emphasized the land's richness, describing it as flowing with milk and honey. However, the other 10 spies focused on the challenges they observed: the formidable inhabitants, walled cities, and descendants of giants. Their negative report instilled fear among the Israelites, causing them to doubt God's promise and rebel against entering Canaan. Consequently, they were condemned to wander the wilderness for an additional 37 years due to their lack of faith. After their journey, Moses stood on Mount Nebo as described in Deuteronomy 34. From there, God showed him the promised land, but informed him that he would not enter it himself. Moses passed away at the age of 120, and according to biblical tradition, God himself buried Moses in an undisclosed location. Thank you for tuning in. If you like the content, show your support by following us on your favorite platform for more Bible stories. Join us as we discuss the great heroes who lived during the period of the Judges.